Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We saw the unveiling of the manifesto as far as the Pml-N is concerned. We'll be talking about the Pml-N's manifesto and what it centers on as far as the political parties move into power. If they win the elections, what are their concentrated areas that they've spoken about as far as their manifesto is concerned. And compared to what the PPP is saying, the main political parties, the manifestos that are in front of us, what are the political parties saying to the people, asking them to vote for them? We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about, of course, the importance of these manifestos today for the voter, how important they are when political parties pledge promises. Do they have the resources to bring about those changes, the realistic nature of these promises, all of that today on Perspective. I have with me today Daniyal Sheikh, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Niaz Murtaza, who is a political analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We'll also be joined by other guests during the course of the program. We also have with us Javed Jadoon, who's a senior analyst. Thank you so much for being with us. Daniyal, before I go to Javed Saab and Niaz Saab, we were saying earlier that the main political parties, we have the manifestos of the PPP and the Pml-N right now. As you look at these manifestos, of course, one of the other major political parties, PTI, doesn't have a manifesto in place. How do you look at the two manifestos in front of us now?
See, basically, the important point in Pml-N's manifesto is they plan to bring the current account deficit down. And that can only be done by cutting down on public spending. Whereas the promises that PPP is making and the things that they've done in the past, it just caused inflation because they're going to print money and build houses. But that's going to increase, their spending is going to be more than our GDP, which is going to cause inflation.
How realistic do you think, for example, the promises, the pledges that are being made to the people as far as PPP is concerned are?
I don't think it's possible, and if they do it, it's just like it's going to be like the Benazir income. They're giving money, they're printing money and giving it, but it's just causing inflation and everything is getting more expensive.
But do you think what is being said is targeted to resonate with the masses? Isn't that true?
Well, I don't think so, because in the past they promised stuff like this, but they haven't been able to deliver it. So which
is one thing that I think was said today. I think Maryam Nawaz said this today. She said that the promises that are being made to the people by political parties, have to be seen in the background of what they've achieved in the past. And I think Pml-N is relying heavily on what they feel they've done in the past under the leadership of the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab. Isn't that true?
That's very true. And if you read the statement of Senator Irfan Siddiqui, he has said that Nawaz Sharif has categorically told us, well, one of the reasons for the delay in the manifesto was, he's like, I want a manifesto that we can implement. I don't want to make false promises.
So according to, let me go to Niaz Saab. Niaz Saab, according to the Pml-N, a lot of work has gone into this manifesto. When you look at it, broadly speaking, how do you, how do you rate it? Do you think it's going to resonate with people? Do you think it's thought out? Do you think it's workable? What is your overall opinion about this?
Well, right now what we have before us is, just the speech that Mr. Nawaz Sharif made and, some bullet points about what, their overall targets are. We still don't have, the full manifesto in the form of, sizable document before us.
I think the PDF document is there now.
Okay, so I haven't been able to get hold of it because this was just released today. What I have before me is a lot of bullet points. The first thing is, of course, it's very late. This should have been ready, months ago, and that should have been the basis for it to, choose candidates, choose allies, and so on. So just 10 days before elections is a bit too late. And the other thing is, it's more comprehensive than, the 10 points that PPP had given. But then again, there is a question of whether, any of this can be achieved. For example, if I look at the economic reforms, it talks about cutting inflation, increasing the growth rate to 6%, increasing remittances, and, cutting fiscal deficit, increasing per capita income. So it talks about all the main areas except debt. That's a huge omission, given how large Pakistan's debt has become. But then, the question is, unless you look at, the full document and you
But
see whether,
Niaz Sab,
there
okay,
are...
fair enough. Fair enough. I'll go to let me go to Javed Sab with this. Javed Sab, there is, this is one of those manifestos. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also talking about environmental. It's talking about environmental initiatives. It's talking about your parliamentary reforms. It's talking about your judicial and legal reforms. Is it? And when you talk about judicial and legal reforms, particularly, we've seen reinstatement of Article 62 and 63, implementation of alternative dispute resolution through judicial, legal, panchayat systems. There's also timely, effective implementation of the judicial system. There's a lot that is being pledged here, and a lot that the Pml-N is saying that they aim to do. Do you think it's workable?
Thank you very much, Mahrukh. But let me start by saying that it is too little and too late, as was pointed out, that when you present a manifesto, you should give enough time to the people, to the electorate, to the voters to go through the entire manifesto and understand what you offer to the people of Pakistan. Right now, I think what I see in the manifesto, the main points which I've gone through, it is loaded with rhetoric and no substance as far as the solutions are concerned. You talk about enhancing the growth rate, you talk about setting up a sports university, you talk about giving participation to the youth of Pakistan. But the problem is there are structural reforms needed in Pakistan. If you want to move Pakistan forward as far as resolution of a very grave economic situation which Pakistan is faced with, you need to give the solution where you're going to, as far as the tax net is concerned. We all know that the real estate and the retail and agriculture, they still remain untaxed. The manifesto, as far I know, the portions I've gone through, doesn't talk about bringing these very important vital areas under the tax net, unless you go for such drastic measures, because these are the very difficult times Pakistan is going through. The rhetoric is one thing.
But Javed Sab, isn't it true that when we talk about manifestos, they're supposed to, generally speaking, I think all over, they're supposed to give a broad outline to the voters, to know, what a political party aims to do, to what, where does it intend to direct its energies. It's not supposed to be a point-by-point plan as to how it's going to implement. Isn't that also true, Daniyal?
You see, like Mr. Jadoon said, there's no substance. I would not agree with him on this, and the reason is the problem with Pakistan has been, especially in the past 2 decades, was that basically we were an agro-based economy. And a lot of people, because the government was not facilitating this sector, a lot of people left their agriculture and started selling their lands and building housing societies. So this direction that this manifesto is giving is that the government is going to focus on the issues of the farmers and facilitate them so they can start cultivating their lands again, and at least the food security issue can be resolved. And more than that, we can generate a lot of we can export our fruits and our vegetables and other crops, and we can this is how I believe that Pml-N thinks they'll be able to cover the
They're
trade
talking
deficit.
about utilization of modern technologies as far as agriculture is concerned. They're talking about interest-free loans, but to be fair, that has been talked about before also.
Well, I don't think it's been focused the way it's being focused right now, and I think this was need of the hour, and the whole genius behind this manifesto is, and this is the only thing that Pakistan can indigenously build. We don't have to rely on
You're saying that maybe the targets or where we need to concentrate, the areas are the same, but they haven't been done. So when a manifesto talks about it, it's essentially saying the same, but it's about how practical they are and whether a government can come and do those things.
Well, I see that if you look at our agriculture, we're still using very, very basic technology.
Yes.
With very little input from the government, we can very easily transform our agriculture sector, and this is something that is highly achievable compared to the promises made before. And on this point, I would like to share a small incident from the previous government when Imran Khan was Prime Minister, and once he hosted some farmers from around Punjab. So one of the farmer, he suggested that we don't have a canal in our area. So if you give us some subsidy on tube wells, so we can set up solar tube wells, we'll be able to cultivate our land and we can produce more crops. And that question was ignored. And then the next farmer, his complaint was that there's a small pesticide shop in his village, and that person sometimes sells fake goods. And the Prime Minister was furious, and he said, I want an immediate action against the shop. So basically the difference in this manifesto and the thoughts that Imran Khan had was this is focusing on the macro economy of agriculture. So we're going back to our roots, and this is the only way out at the moment.
Niaz Sahab, also, for a lot of things on the legal side, what is being talked about constitutional reforms, there in a lot of areas, judicial and legal reforms will require considerable numbers. If you talk about constitutional amendments to change provisions, to amend them and all of that. So, those are also going to be some of the hurdles. Of course, the PML-N expects or says that they do expect those numbers. But these are just some of those practical hurdles that perhaps, will come when implementing these measures. Isn't that true?
Well, there's like about 10 points here under judicial reforms, and only one of them requires a constitutional amendment, which is about 62 and 63. The rest are more administrative, but the issue there would be that, that overlaps with the jurisdiction of, the courts themselves, and they are, taking some steps themselves. For example, live broadcast of court proceedings, that's already started.
That's already happening, yes.
Yeah. So again, I would have liked to see more constitutional, amendments mentioned, because, there's so many problems. For example, more on, local governance, and I believe they have even made some promises to MQM. That was the basis for their partnership with them. So more on local governance, and then also on, the selection of judges and so on. So there are so many other things on which, constitutional amendments would be required. Which are not really mentioned, but then, where are the numbers going to come from? Right now it looks more like, it will be, a hung parliament. If you go by, some of the recent opinion surveys that have come, and, you try to, look at what those opinion surveys in 2013 and 18 meant, and what kind of a majority PML-N might have. So, my calculation is that it will be a bit short of, majority even after all.
But when you talk about this kind of, when you talk about the reforms, when you talk about the, overall, the way that this manifesto is structured at this time, don't you think that, it's a comprehensive document in which, if you compare it to what the PPP is saying, this, the pledges of doing more for the people, there's more, this manifesto seems to be based on their past performance, areas they feel they've worked on, areas they feel the concentration is supposed to be on those same areas, to build from where, Nawaz Sharif Saab has said that he stopped, from where, he was, according to him, told to leave the conspiracy and all of that. And, the slogan, Pakistan ko nawaz do.
Well, he did mention about that, that was his big point, that, prime ministers should not be sent home. But then, there's nothing here in the document which would show how he's going to, stop that kind of a thing. And, ensure that prime ministers complete their term. But I mean, on judicial reform, I don't remember them doing much from 2013 to 2018. There's a lot about, building freeways and, the Jangla buses that we had. So it was, infrastructure heavy. And then later on, CPAC came. So it would have been good to see, because CPAC is stuck for the last 5 or 6 years. It was up and going only for 2 or 3 years initially after 2015. So, is there a new idea on CPAC? Then, there is a new buzz about SIFC. So how will those two be merged? And, how will we have industrialization and how will we have investment and productivity increase? Because that's Pakistan's big problem. We have 6% growth, but it's not based on investment and productivity increases. It's usually through, fiscal deficit, current account deficits, money supply growth. So that doesn't last more than a couple of years, and then we have a crash. That's what happened with PML-N 6% and PTI 6%. They were both the causes of the crisis that we had in 2019 and then, recently for the last couple of years. So how are we going to increase investment and productivity? That is what we need to hear from, PML and all the parties. Yes, as I said, even at the beginning, there are more, headings and, points here than what PPP has. And of course, PTI doesn't even have a manifesto. In fact, PTI is not even part of the election. So why should we expect it to have a manifesto? But then just having more points is not enough. You have to have strategies, and then more importantly, you have to have new faces which give you faith and that they can implement a new kind of strategy. So if it's going to be the same old cabinet,
before I go to Javed Sahab, I'm going to Daniyal. But new faces have not always worked for Pakistan. That's also true, Daniyal.
That is true, but before that, what Mr. Niaz Sahab said, I would like to, one of the questions I would answer. So basically, I coming from a rural background can tell you, even today, our farmers are relying on their animals to plow their lands. They've got no facility from the government. If we want economic reforms, we have to start from somewhere. The only industry that we can rely on at the moment, with the current resources we have, we're running out of natural resources, we're running out of gas, we're running out of fuel, energy. The only resource that we can bank on is agriculture. And I think this is a shift in PML-N strategy, because it's because they're looking at the ground realities. And
because they've, as I understand it, and I'm going to go to Javed Sahab after this, they've been more, industry based. They've always focused on that.
In the past.
Yes.
But now, considering our current energy crisis, I think this is we have to be self-reliant on something, and this is one thing that we can achieve immediately. And one thing I would like to add
You think we can achieve it immediately?
Of course we can, because this is something, agriculture is in our DNA. All our forefathers, like all of us sitting here, we were all in some way linked to it. But in the past few decades, we left that. Now we have to go back to that, and we have to bring the modern techniques and enhance our capacity. And before, one last thing I would say, I could say that Mr. Niaz said that before this manifesto, in the previous governments, NAWAZ or his government was never focused on judicial reform. So I just remembered this one instant. Once, when he was standing outside NAB court and some journalists were asking him some questions, and he said that, now after getting into this mess, I realized that how lengthy and how traumatizing the procedure is, and if I get a chance, I'll make sure. So, and this is an amazing thing, that if somebody can learn and remember from his difficult times and then try to implement that, so I think we should appreciate that.
We should definitely. Javed Sahab, there is, when we talk about this manifesto, one of the other things, and I think Niaz Sahab already spoke about this, we have seen in this country prime ministers not unfortunately complete their 5-year term. That is something that's recurring. So for a party like the PML-N, a mainstream political party, to take ownership of this and say that they want to do away, they want to change things in that direction, I think that's also something that's applaud-worthy,
Mahrukh, what you're saying is that probably they were not given enough time to complete their tenures. Therefore, they weren't able to complete their manifestos as well. As far as I'm concerned, manifestos are full of very fancy words, but at the outset I said no concrete solutions to how you achieve whatever you are trying to put into your manifestos. For example, education, 0.5% of the GDP announcement, where the money is going to come from. I mean, the political parties need to understand, when they make some commitment with the people of Pakistan, with the voter, they must tell the people, the nation, that where the resources are going to come from. Education, of course, the focus is there. Even Pakistan People's Party talks about, more or less, the manifestos of every political party is the same manifesto. But the problem, Mahrukh, lies with the implementation of the manifestos. They believe that they can put some lines on the paper in bullets or whatever, and ultimately what they do when they come into power, then they start talking about, look, we didn't know the shape of the economy was so bad. This is exactly what happened with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. They were telling the people, we are fully prepared, we have a very competent team, we have the think tanks, all the professionals. They assembled a team of 20 economists. What happened to that? Same is the case. I mean, Pakistan Muslim League, and look at the manifesto. They are trying to glorify what they did in the past. The people, the young voter, it is about how many? 6 crore ke lagbhag. This is what we have, the young voter in Pakistan.
About
Are they going to buy what you did in the past? Are they looking for some kind of very concrete solutions? The young voter, look at the demography. Between 18 to 25, they're about 2.3 crore. And between 25 to 36, 3.3 crore. This is the very dangerous composition of the voters
Javed
in Pakistan.
Sir, when we talk about one of the things that I think...
Can you, Mahrukh, please let me complete. Can you make them live the glory of the past? All these parties did. Talk about what the manifesto says. This is what we did. This is what we did. This is what we did. What are you going to do now? This is the most important question the young voter is going to ask every political party. Is it fair to the people of Pakistan, before the 10 days before the elections, you present your manifesto and you say, well, we deserve to be in power because we have given you the manifesto. Give me, as a journalist, give me some time to go through it. Let me judge you on the basis of
But Javed Sir, if you ask the Pml-N leadership, they say that this is our manifesto. If you ask the Pml-N leadership, they say that the motorways are their manifesto. If you ask them, they say the infrastructure. They say that, you know, the orange line is their manifesto. So for them, you know, they're saying that their performance in the past, before they were interrupted, you know, so to speak, is what their manifesto is. Do you think that's going to resonate with the voter?
It is not going to be orange train. It is going to be economy. Economy is in total shambles. How are you going to recover Pakistan economically? How you can put Pakistan on the path of socio-economic development? Only then you can make commitments with the people, with the electorate, particularly the young voters of Pakistan. You can't fool them. It's a brand new generation. 2.2 crore young voters were added into the voters list between 2018 to 2023. Can you fool them? I don't think so.
Right, fair enough. Let's see. I want to go on and talk about that more. We also have with us Barrister Safiullah Ghauri, who's a legal expert. I'm going to go to him. Ji, Safiullah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ji, Safiullah, there is also, before I go on and talk about the offer that you know, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is making to his opponents about a televised debate, I want to also ask you about the manifesto and the Pml-N's judicial and legal side of things. How do you look at what the Pml-N is saying that they want to do on the judicial and legal side? They're talking about, you know, effective... Ji, 1 second. They're talking about...
Sorry, Mahrukh, can you give me a second? Sorry, apologies.
Ji, can you hear me? Safiullah, can you hear me now? There's a problem with audio. I'm going to go to Daniyal here. Ji, Daniyal, what Javed Sahab just said and Niaz Sahab said, do you think how much of your voter, I mean, you talk about the rural side, how much of your voter is going to be looking at the manifesto in your opinion?
I don't think the manifesto matters. The past performance matters, and as Jadoon Sahab said, the economy is in shambles. I agree, and the reason for that is the trade deficit. And now when we talk about orange train or when we talk about infrastructure, so the idea or the genius behind it is, like if you take Lahore as an example, if you were to get from point A to point B, without all this roads and all this network, you would spend a lot more fuel. So, and our biggest expense is our fuel imports. So the idea behind this was, because people have to, communication, they have to go from one place to another.
And the idea of linkages also was also for commercial purposes. When you talk about the rural and the urban link and all of that, of course, that was behind the whole planning as far as motorways is concerned. As far as,
you know,
so as far as the Pml-N is concerned, they're saying they're clear on that. I think Safiullah is back. I'll come back to you. Ji, Safiullah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, so Safiullah, before I go on to the televised debate, which is what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has asked his opponents, you know, his offer of that televised debate, I want to ask you about the manifesto's judicial legal reform side. You know, there's also, you know, timely effective management, all of that, you know, major cases to conclude, commitment to end NAB, also amendments to frontier crimes regulations 1898, 1906, judicial system modernization, establishment of commercial courts, improvement of maritime courts. You know, a lot of this is, for the first time, there's this kind of concentration on the judicial side. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree, and I think this has been a long time coming, Mahrukh, because we've discussed on your show many times that Pakistan is one of those very unfortunate countries that suffers from very archaic legal systems. You know, we have laws and all of our acts that go back to the British era, sometimes things that go back up to 150 years ago. And the onus, it's often said that the judiciary needs to fix itself, but you are yourself a lawyer. You know that the judiciary cannot fix itself until the parliament passes the laws that fix the judiciary. And until and unless such courts and such procedures are made that allow the judiciary to function in a different manner, the judiciary's hands are tied. So this is usually a debate, as in, you know, every time there's a new chief justice, every time there's a new appointment in the judiciary, it is often asked whether judges can do anything. And no, they cannot. They cannot, because they are bound by the administrative systems that have been set down by the laws. So the idea that the legislature is finally looking at the judiciary and looking to improve things is something that is very welcome. I am, for one, extremely happy, and I think this is the only way forward for Pakistan.
Are you looking, if you compare it to what the PPP is saying, do you think that, you know, that is more broad-based, it's more, you know, perhaps there's less concentration in these areas? How would you compare it?
Sorry, come again? Can you please repeat this?
If you compare it to what the PPP is saying in their manifesto, how would you rate it in terms of, you know, perhaps there is less concentration there in these areas? Because we've also seen, like we talked about here in the studio, that our leaders have also been, you know, unfortunately, or, you know, they've been at the behest of the legal system. And, you know, for them to now want to take an active role in trying to amend what perhaps the common man goes through every day is perhaps a positive step in the right direction.
No, I think there is no second word about it, because the idea that judicial reforms should be done not for personal gains, not to ensure that your own cases are fixed in a particular manner, but rather to have a system which is addressing the problems of every single citizen of Pakistan, which is a basic right. And the Pakistani Constitution promises free and fair justice for everyone. And at least, you know, if not free and fair, then at least it should be cheap. So judicial reforms were a long time coming, and the system that exists in Pakistan has been often criticized. Pakistan ranks very poorly on the World Justice Index, and there's absolutely no doubt about the fact. It's a very commonplace experience of everyone who is a Pakistani that the justice system here, it has been a failure. To ensure and to address that head-on is a magnificent idea. I honestly cannot be happier. This is something that I feel
Moving on to the debate side of things, how do you look at this offer by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari of wanting to debate with his opponents?
Once again, I think it's the only civilized way of figuring out what policy matters are. What unfortunately we have in Pakistan is a terrible system of people voting on personalities and not on issues. We have seen in the US, you know, even though people do vote on personalities there, but there are public debates on each and every issue. There is a moderator, they ask questions, everybody answers those questions, and the public then knows where their candidate stands on any particular question. This is what the true essence of democracy is. The idea of democracy is that people should know what they're voting for, and that should be publicly stated. So I honestly, once again, think that this is something that Pakistan should have done a long time ago. This offer is a very, very brave offer. It's a bold offer, and it is the kind of offer that should be taken up, and I hope that somebody takes it up. I hope that somebody has a debate. I hope that debate is televised, and I hope that people sit and watch the candidates debate over policy issues.
Please stay with us. I'm going to go to Daniyal. I want to come back and talk about what the Cipher case and the latest developments there. The reports of there being, perhaps some friction in the jail while the proceedings were going on as far as Adyala, in Adyala jail on the Cipher case, and how do you look at that? First, I'm going to go to Daniyal ji. Daniyal,
yes,
what do you want to say?
I would just like to add to what Mr. Ghauri said. He said that often the judicial officers want to bring upon reforms, but they're binded by the law. And there's another issue, especially in the lower judiciary, which is overwork burden. So, the alternate dispute resolution committees, the panchayat system that they're going to bring about is going to definitely take some burden off the judiciary and some burden off the police, and they'll be able to focus on their other work.
I think there is, as I understand, some. Safiullah, can you hear me? Ji, Safiullah?
Ji, I can hear you.
Ji, there is, I understand ADR is even now a part of our legal system, but perhaps the panchayat system, we want to go back to that, and that is also in the manifesto. Can you tell us a little bit about these developments as far as the Cipher case is concerned?
Sure, but just before that, I would like to tell you that a new bill has been passed by the Parliament, which now makes ADR a necessary part of the system. The processes are still being done. A lot of people are getting trained in mediation. The Islamabad High Court, Supreme Court, all of these, Lahore High Court, have all passed several batches now of mediators and arbitrators. So, inshallah, we'll be seeing a difference in the alternate dispute resolution very soon. As far as the Cipher case is concerned, to my knowledge, of course, I am not fully aware of everything that has happened, but from everything that I've read, it appears that once again Imran Khan's counsels did not come, and Imran Khan and Shah Mahmood Qureshi's counsels did not come to the case. From their perspective, this was a delaying tactic and one that has been done time and again. So the court ordered the state to give them counsels. Now, this is something that happens very often. State counsels are appointed if somebody cannot afford a counsel, if somebody does not have a counsel. The state is under an obligation to still provide justice and ensure that everybody gets a counsel. So the state provided them with the counsel, and that has led to a lot of distasteful friction in the court. It is being said that the state is trying to take away their legal rights. But that's not the case. I mean, very frankly, the state is giving them what is their legal right, which is an access to a counsel. And if their own counsels are refusing to come to the court, if their own counsels are constantly asking for adjournments or for some reason are unable to appear, despite the fact that they have close to 100 lawyers between them, and if still, despite having 100 lawyers, not one lawyer is turning up, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing for the state to give them a counsel and for that counsel to appear on their behalf so that the case can move forward.
But is it also, I mean, if you don't have confidence in the counsel that state provides for you, are you, is it up to you to change it at any time? How does it work in that?
So once again, if you do not have confidence in the state counsel, then you can always say that I do not have confidence in my counsel. I want to appoint my own counsel. That is something that they are fully within their right to do, and they can exercise that right. But then their own counsel will have to come forward and say that I will be their counsel. I will not seek adjournments. I will come to the court. Then the counsel needs to come and give the court an assurance and say that they will not hide away from the legal proceedings.
Do you see this perhaps moving, in a more speedy manner now?
Of course, because now the only thing that will happen is that the state counsel will be removed. Their own counsels will come back and give undertakings and state that they will now attend every hearing without fail. That's perhaps what the court wanted in the first place. The court cannot risk constantly delaying things. They want to give a judgment. Once again, in this case, I think the reason why they're trying to delay it is because they're probably certain that the decision will come out against them. Maybe the evidence against them is so harsh and so manifest that they know already that this is going to happen, and so perhaps this is a verdict that they're trying to avoid before the elections, whereas the court might be trying to press it because this is an important case, and of course this does have a ramification on Pakistan's political and foreign diplomacy.
Right, fair enough. Thank you so much, Safiullah. I'm going to go to Niaz Saab. Niaz Saab, your comments on this before we close. We're running out of time, but I'd like your quick comments on how you think that the case, as far as the Cipher trial is concerned.
Well, I mean, personally, from what I have read, I fail to understand what secret has been revealed through that cipher. Now, by definition, all ciphers may be confidential, but that doesn't mean that every cipher contains very top secrets, etc. So we should not just look at the fact that it was a cipher, which is by definition, confidential. We should look at what it contained, and from what I have seen, there was nothing confidential, no top state secrets. So the whole.
But of course, this will come up during the trial, and we will perhaps, and I probably they will get a chance to refute whatever allegations are being, leveled against them. Javed Saab, your comments also.
I think as far as this legal issue is concerned, it's difficult for me to comment, not being a legal expert. As was pointed out by Barrister Safi, I think Imran Khan's legal team will be able to present themselves when the next hearing takes place, and they can always tell the judge that, well, we would be regular from now onward. But one thing is for very sure that justice should be done and must be seen to be done as well.
Right, fair enough. Daniyal, you know, of course, the manifesto, of course, now we have the main manifestos, they've been given out and they're in front of the people. How and what role they'll play in the electoral process, of course, it varies. You know, according to you, you feel probably not as much in the rural areas and perhaps a little more in the urban. But of course, one thing is certain, they should perhaps play a larger role in where and how people vote.
No, it will definitely play a role. Like I said before, a lot of people, a big population of Pakistan is linked to agriculture in some way. So everyone's going to benefit if wheat is going to be cheaper.
The manifesto's role in getting people to vote for a particular party.
See, yeah, the people who always criticize Pml-N
for less agriculture are looking at how their renewed interest in the sector. Right, fair enough. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Daniyal Sheikh, thank you for joining us. Niaz Murtaza Saab, thank you for being with us. Barrister Safi Ghauri, thank you for joining us. Javed, Jadoon, thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, one wants there to be manifestos that appeal to, and I think the political party's aim is to, of course, appeal to as much of a section of society as possible, and of course having agriculture, like we talked about, as a mainstream focus area for a party like Pml-N is a great development in the right direction. We'll be looking at, of course, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and his manifesto versus what the Pml-N is saying. As far as the Pml-N is saying, they're saying very clearly that NAWAZ ko, Pakistan ko NAWAZ do, and also that what we have done for the people is our manifesto. What we have built, our infrastructure, our road to economic recovery that we were on before we were interrupted is our manifesto. Of course, closer to the elections, we'll be able to know more and how, where people want to vote. Thank you so much for joining us today. Perspective.